This two-day meeting is being held on August 18th and 19th, 2016, at 1625 North Market Boulevard, Sacramento, California, in the hearing room. Today is Thursday, August 18th. I am Deborah Brown. I am the board chair. The time is now 1:05, and I would like to call this meeting to order. The board is required to hold public meetings and make policy decisions that protect the health, safety, and welfare of California consumers. During the meeting today, public comment is welcome on any agenda item as the item is taken up by the board. Under the Open Meeting Act, the board may not take any action on issues raised that are not on the agenda, other than to decide whether to schedule that issue for a future meeting. If any person desires to address the board, it will be appreciated if you came forward to the podium or to the table, and you are welcome to give your name or the name of your organization, although it's not required, but appreciated. At this time, I would like to have roll call.
Good afternoon. Max Disposti.
Here.
Dr. Leah Brew.
Here.
Dr. Christine Whitlisbach.
Here.
Renee Launer.
Here.
Deborah Brown.
Here.
Patricia Lock-Dawson.
Here.
Betty Conley.
Here.
Christina Wong.
Here.
Dr. Peter Chu.
Here.
Karen Pines.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay. Now we start with introductions, and I'll start at my far right. If you'd introduce yourself, please.
I am Max Disposti, newly appointed board member. I was here last board meeting, and I'm the director of a North County LGBTQ Resource Center down in Southern California, San Diego area. Thank you.
Leah Brew, LPCC member. Christine Whitlisbach, public member.
Renee Launer, LCSW member.
Deborah Brown, public member.
Patricia Lock-Dawson, public member.
Betty Conley, LEP member.
Christina Wong, LCSW member.
Peter Chu, public member.
Karen Pines, LMFT member.
Okay, so we were going to begin our proceedings today. I would like to introduce the Honorable Marcy Larson.
Good afternoon. I am going to be assisting the board this afternoon with two petition hearings that are scheduled. The first that's going to be heard is the petition for modification of probation of Alejandro Borella. If Mr. Borella could please come up to the table here. And with regards to our court reporter, just the only thing you're going to be recording is the actual hearings. Don't record the whole proceeding. No. I see you typing. And you don't have to actually get started until I announce this case, and then I'll close the case after we're all done, and then we'll start with the next one. Oh, all right, good. All right, Mr. Borella, and our court reporter here, she's going to be, after I announce the case, she's going to start recording, typing everything that's being said at the hearing today. So once we go on the record, what I'm going to do is I'm going to announce your case. I'm going to have counsel announce herself for the record. I'm going to have all of the board members announce themselves for the record because we're having a transcript prepared of your hearing, and so everybody will be identified. And then I'm going to go through how the hearing is going to proceed this afternoon. If you have any questions after I have explained the process, then feel free to ask me those questions. If I can answer them, I will. All right? All right then. All right. On the record? Good afternoon. We are on the record. It is August 18th, 2016, in the matter of the petition for modification of probation of Alejandro Borella. This matter is being heard before the Board of Behavioral Sciences, Department of Consumer Affairs, State of California. OH case number 2016-070-253, agency number 2002-01500084. Will the board members please identify themselves for the record, starting to my far right?
Max Disposti.
Leah Brew. Christine Whitlisbach.
Deborah Brown.
Patricia Lock-Dawson.
Betty Conley.
Christina Wong.
Peter Chu.
Karen Pines.
I have a quorum present. My name is Marcy Larson. I'm an administrative law judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings. I'm presiding over this matter this afternoon and assisting the board with this hearing. May I please have the appearance of the Deputy Attorney General?
Christina Jarvis, Deputy Attorney General.
All right, and Mr. Borella, if you would please state your appearance for the record as well.
Alejandro Borella.
Borella, I'm going to have you bring your microphone just a little closer down. There we go. Just to make sure that you speak up nice and loudly so we can hear you. As I explained before we went on the record, Mr. Borella, I'll briefly explain how the hearing is going to proceed this afternoon. This proceeding this afternoon is concerning the petition that you filed for modification of your probation. The board is concerned about hearing about any rehabilitation that you've undertaken since your license was disciplined. The Deputy Attorney General will proceed first. She will submit the petition for modification into evidence and provide an orientation of the history of your case. After that, you will have an opportunity to testify on your own behalf. Just as a reminder, the board has the benefit of the petition package and any documentation that you submitted. So you don't need to repeat anything that you've already provided in that petition package, but rather highlight any particular information that you would like the board to consider. After you're done presenting your case, the Deputy Attorney General will have an opportunity to ask you some questions. After she's done, the board members will then have an opportunity to ask you some questions. At the very end of once the board members have asked all their questions, you'll have an opportunity to give any closing remarks, and the Deputy Attorney General will likewise have an opportunity to give closing remarks. After the matter is closed today, the board will go into closed session and deliberate. You will not receive a decision today. You will receive a decision at Right. As I explained before, if you have any questions about the process, please feel free to ask me. I can't give you any legal advice, but if you do have a question just about procedures, if I can answer the question, I will. All right? All right, ready to get started?
Yes.
All right then, Ms. Jarvis.
Thank you. My name is Christina Jarvis. I am here appearing on behalf of the Attorney General pursuant to Government Code Section 11522 and Business and Professions Code Section 4990.30. My role is not intended to be adversarial. It is intended solely to protect the public interest. My purpose is to assist the board in fact-finding by ensuring that the board has adequate information from which to make a decision on this petition. On or about May 29th, 2014, this petitioner submitted an application to the board for registration as an associate clinical social worker. In the interest of full disclosure, I also handled that statement of issues case, including negotiating the settlement with this petitioner's counsel. Petitioner's application was denied due to 4 convictions. In February 1994, petitioner was convicted of carrying a concealed weapon in his vehicle, a misdemeanor. In May 1996, petitioner was convicted of transporting methamphetamine for the purposes of sale, with the enhancement of possessing a firearm during the commission of the offense, a felony. On or about the same date, in May 1996, this petitioner was convicted again of transporting methamphetamine for the purposes of sale, with an enhancement in this case of being on bail for the offense just discussed while the second offense occurred. Petitioner apparently did not realize that while on bail, he might still be under surveillance, and the surveillance team was able to pick him up quite swiftly after he picked up the methamphetamines. And finally, in July of 2008, petitioner was convicted of possessing methamphetamine a third time, also a felony. In this instance, petitioner was apparently distraught over the loss of his mother. He began using methamphetamines again, and on the date in question, he began shooting a BB gun towards his neighbor's house. He caused approximately $400 in damage and superficial injury to the neighbor. During the criminal proceedings, the petitioner was found to be mentally incompetent to stand trial and was committed to the Department of Mental Health for approximately 9 months before being found to be competent and the criminal proceedings resumed. Petitioner entered into a stipulated settlement with the board effective July 23, 2015. He was granted registration as an associate clinical social worker. That registration was immediately revoked, and the revocation was stayed for a 3-year probation term with standard and optional terms and conditions of probation. Petitioner has been 100% compliant with probation. He has completed his psychological evaluation, and he was found safe to practice. Petitioner's psychotherapy reports have been submitted timely, and they have been uniformly positive. Petitioner has complied with the biological fluid testing, and all tests have been negative. Petitioner attends a dependency support program. He has submitted his quarterly reports in a timely manner, and as of the time of this petition, he had paid approximately $2,600 in the probation monitoring costs at a rate of $1,200 per year. At this time, I will identify the exhibits in the packet before you and request that they be admitted into evidence.
All right, Mr. Borella, for each of the documents that Ms. Jarvis identifies, they're going to be in the binder that's in front of you, and they're going to be tabbed. For each of the documents, I'm going to ask you if you've reviewed the document and if you have any objection to the document. You have to have a legal basis for an objection, but if you don't know what the legal basis is, but you have an objection to a document, just please let me know, and I'll get more information from you. Jarvis.
Thank you. The document behind tab 1, which I would ask to be marked as Exhibit 1, is the petition for modification of probation, which was submitted by the petitioner with multiple attachments. Petitioner attached 20 letters of support. Respondent's clinical supervisor, the medical director of the clinic where he works wrote letters, along with 3 doctors, 3 nurse practitioners, and a physician's assistant, all of whom he either works with or who have recommended patients to him. Another 5 individuals include a doctor, a coach, and the director at his dependency program, as well as a therapist who also wrote letters. Petitioner's therapist also states that he is in support of Mr. Borella's request to have his probation modified. And I ask that that be admitted into evidence.
Borella, have you reviewed the documents behind Exhibit 1?
Yes, I have.
Any objection?
Thank you. I will identify the document behind tab 2 and ask it be admitted, the stipulated settlement and disciplinary order dated June 23rd, 2015, effective July 23rd, 2015, which also includes the underlying statement of issues.
Mr. Borella, have you reviewed the documents behind Exhibit 2?
have.
Any objection?
Thank you. And I'll identify the document behind tab 3 as the psychological assessment of petitioner by Cynthia Newman, that's Neuman, PhD, finding that petitioner is safe to practice, and ask that it be admitted into evidence.
Mr. Borella, any objection to Exhibit 3?
No.
Exhibit 3 is admitted.
Thank you. And the documents behind tab 4 are the quarterly reports from petitioner's therapist from September of 2015 through June 2016. And I ask they be admitted into evidence.
Mr. Borella, any objection to Exhibit 4? Exhibit 4 is admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. And Exhibit 5, the notice of hearing that brought the petitioner here today, and I ask it be admitted into evidence.
Objection to Exhibit 5. Exhibit 5 is admitted.
And finally, Exhibit 6, petitioner's registration history certification, which I also ask be admitted into evidence.
Any objection? Exhibit 6 is admitted.
Shortly prior to this case being called today, petitioner also provided a packet, which I would ask be marked as Exhibit A. I have provided a packet at each of the board members' seats. If anybody does not have one, please raise your hand so that I can bring you an extra copy. Petitioner has informed me that he intends to read part of this, and then he will discuss the rest of it during his presentation. However, I did want to mention that included in this packet is Mr. Borella's most recent performance evaluation, which indicates that he has met or exceeded the performance parameters. And I will have no objection to that being admitted into evidence at that time.
And it'll be marked for identification at this time as Exhibit A, and then after Mr. Borella has had an opportunity to discuss those documents, I will move it into evidence, all right?
Thank you.
Thank you. Today, petitioner is specifically requesting that his therapy and biological fluid testing requirements be either completely ceased or substantially reduced. The reasons for this request will be addressed by him, and it is now his opportunity to address the board once sworn. Thank you.
Borella, it's now your opportunity to provide any testimony you wish the board to consider. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to swear you in. If you would please rise. Right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you give in this matter will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth? And please state and spell your full name for the record.
Alejandro Borella, Alejandro Barrela.
Borella, you may begin.
Well, I have a two-page and a paragraph that I would like to read because I'm a little bit nervous. This is very emotional for me.
Borella, I'm just going to caution you. Sometimes when we read, we tend to read faster than we actually speak. Our court reporter here, she has to take down everything that you say. So if you could just take a nice big deep breath and read a little slower than you normally would, that will ensure that she gets down everything that you're saying, all right?
Thank you.
All right.
First of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here today. I have had so many challenges in my life that this is truly a miracle. Please let me set the record straight. As much as I dislike paying consequences, I am grateful that I was arrested all those times because I needed help, and unfortunately, that was the only way I was able to get it. I am a real alcoholic. I have survived childhood traumas and even more traumas in my addiction. But thankfully, I am now living some of the promises mentioned in the big book, pages 83 and 84, figure A. Extravagant promises coming true for me are my recovery support system that is strong and consistent and helps me find serenity most of the time. My mind was, and still is, healthy enough to finish a Master of Social Work program on May of 2014. After several attempts, I found an employer supervisor who is willing to give me a chance with my background as long as I had my ASW number within 1 year of employment, figure B. With the support from an attorney and money from employment, I was able to get an ASW registration with a stipulated settlement close to 1 year after I was hired, figures C and D. One of my goals is to work with Latinos and other male groups in reentry programs as they get ready to be released from incarceration confinement. Some of the specific areas of emphasis will be chemical dependency and/or mental health illnesses, anger management, domestic violence, sexual offenses, parenting, life skills in general. My other goal is to work with the Latino population in our underserved communities, with adults, youth, families, couples, and groups in any area of need that I am trained on. My clinical social work license will help me achieve these goals in several ways, starting with the background clearance eligibility. The way the promises have been unfolding in my life, my goals should be reached sooner than later. The reasons I am here today is to respectfully request to end or significantly reduce my probation requirements because I am completely sure that the time, money, and dedication that they require from me could be invested in more effective ways to improve my practice skills as a therapist for the clients I serve. My sobriety date is September 1, 2007, which makes me sober for 8 years and 11 months. I have submitted numerous letters of reference as proof that my recovery is as best as it can be, with a sponsor, sponsoring men, leading groups, attending 3 groups per week, doing step studies every year, and so much more. Some of the probation requirements would have been great the first couple of years, but I am already 8 years and 11 months sober, fully and willingly participating in my recovery. Therapy was very useful the first 2 years of my after my relapse. I did go on my own because I believe in therapy. 8 years and 11 months into my sobriety, though, the psychologist who evaluated me, my current therapist, my sponsor, and me all agree that it is not useful to have weekly psychotherapy. My aftercare activities are sufficient for maintenance, which are to go to 3 process groups per week, have accountability with my sponsor and other men, and to be of service. I have submitted numerous letters of reference and evaluations to show that my clinical practice, personal life, and my personal life are ethical, professional, safe, healthy, dedicated, honest, and continue to improve every day. Figures F, G, and H. The drug testing and the fear of failing probation could be viewed as negative motivators to stay sober. But for someone with all the traumas I have had, and the length of time of being sober, positive motivators work so much better. The psychologist, my therapist, my sponsor, and I all agree that because of my past traumas, I react very well to positive reinforcements, like the unconditional love my mother gave me, and now I get from my recovery family. My positive motivators are my new life full of purpose, with an effective support system of people who love me unconditionally and accept me as I am. Thanks to the God of my understanding and my recovery support system, I am now living a life beyond my wildest dreams, with serenity and love. I have learned from people with many years of sobriety that if I continue doing what I am doing today, one day at a time, I don't have to ever drink or use again. In conclusion, I would like to say that I willingly accepted the terms of the stipulated settlement for at least 3 reasons. 1, because I read it, understood it, and signed it on June 2015. 2, because I did many mistakes in the past and I deserve consequences for my actions. And 3, because I am willing to do whatever it takes that is legal and honest to fulfill my purpose, calling as a licensed clinical social worker. Nonetheless, I am sure that the time, money, and dedication required for the stipulations could be invested in more effective ways to make me even a better therapist for the clients I serve. There are many examples I could list, but some of the main ones are that I could invest more time and money in professional growth and update myself in areas where I need training. With the $500 I spend on drug testing, therapy, and fees per month, I would be able to afford a safer apartment and decrease the stress that I get from living in poor neighborhoods. My practice as a therapist is great, as my evaluations and letters of reference show, but I could even perform better if I did not have to worry about all the money I owe and my financial limitations. Last but not least, I would like to be able to dedicate my clients the planning time, driving time, and waiting time I spend doing all these probation requirements. My service delivery would definitely improve. The administration fees are paid in full in case you decide to end my probation requirements, Figure E. Therefore, if you find it in your heart to support me by removing or at least significantly reducing the probation requirements, I would be very grateful. Thank you for your time.
All right. Borella, at this time, Ms. Jarvis will have an opportunity to ask you some questions, and then I will open it up to the board members, and then if there's anything that you remember after you're asked some questions that you want to add at the end, you'll have an opportunity to do that as well, all right?
Okay.
All right, Ms. Jarvis.
Thank you. Mr. Borella, you originally became sober after your 2 felony arrests in about 1996, is that correct? Yes. And then you were sober until around 2005 or 2006?
Yes.
But you relapsed.
Yes, I did.
What were some of your triggers to relapse?
I was too busy finishing my first MSW program and being a therapist, a counselor, a substance abuse counselor, and trying to buy a house, and I wasn't going to enough groups. I wasn't connected to my recovery support system.
How many groups were you?
I was not connected to a recovery support system.
How many times were you going to groups at that time?
Probably once every 2 weeks to a month.
How frequently do you go to groups now?
3 times a week. Okay, so one time a week minimum to 3 times a week average. This was before I even applied for this registration.
Do you have a relapse prevention plan?
I do.
What is it?
I stay connected to my support system. I have a sponsor, I call them every day. I have people that I work with, and that keeps me reminded. I have inventories that I do every night, every morning, and I have people who keep me accountable. They ask me why I do things, how I do things. So I give them permission to ask me questions, personal questions, and they're men who care about me and they keep me awake.
Now, your therapist had mentioned that you felt that your real issues began when your mother passed away. Is that right?
That was, the real issue started before that, but that was one of the main hits that I wasn't expecting. So that was the excuse I gave myself, the permission I gave myself to relapse. And I'm not going to give myself any excuse anymore because I know I have choices.
And then 3 of your 4 convictions, although one was a BB gun, also involved firearms, correct?
Mm-hmm.
That a yes?
Yes, yes.
Do you continue to own firearms?
I don't.
What about the BB gun?
No, I don't.
Okay. I have no other questions at this time.
All right, now I'm going to open up questions from our board members, starting to my far left. And if you could just, for the record, identify your name before you begin. Thank you.
Karen Pines. I don't have any questions at this time. Hear what my colleagues have to ask.
Peter Chu, thanks for coming here to present your situation. I just have some clarification later. How many years you've been under therapy?
With these 2, it has been most of the 8 that I've been sober, close to 9.
Okay.
Because I was doing once a month already when I started this, so I went back to once a week again.
It's not quite clear to me what is your therapist's recommendation. I know your therapist support your application for modification of the probation, but does your therapy actually recommend termination of therapy?
At this point in my recovery, is usually optional. If I need to go see him, I would go see him because I do have options. I do have issues, but to go especially once a week is too much.
So that's why I want to clarify. Your request is it for termination of therapy or reduction of therapy?
I'm recommending termination with the option of me choosing when I want to go.
I see.
Yeah, I'm responsible about that. I did it before. When I applied for the registration, I was already in treatment. I was already in recovery and therapy for my relapse issues. The relapse was not just drinking. The relapse was life issues that brought me to the drinking.
So I try to understand. So where do you think you stand now? Do you think there's ongoing issue you need to see a therapist for, or as you indicated, you just feel like you should just see the therapist on an as needed basis?
As needed basis, and basically there are other areas like being a better therapist would be a higher priority to me than dealing with issues that I don't need right now for myself. But I could need them next week.
Thank you.
Christina Wong, thanks for coming in. I want to further clarify Dr. Chu's question. So, who do you mind to supply the name of the therapist that used to attend prior to your current therapist?
Yeah, it's Bob Bowling.
And he
Robert.
So is Mr. Bowling the same therapist, or is it a different
Yeah,
person?
it's the same one.
Okay, so you have been seeing him for 8 years?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so,
Is that a yes?
Yes.
I'm sorry, when you say mm-hmm, the court reporter can't take that down as a yes or no, so we just need to clarify for the record.
Yes.
so can you help us understand what did you learn, from the 8 years therapy, and what kind of stuff that you have gained, all of this 8 years of treatment?
Well, first of all, that a lot of the blaming, because I suffer a lot of trauma, but I'm responsible to deal with it, to walk through it, and not blame other people, because it doesn't get me anywhere to start blaming my parents, my father, society, or whoever. It only takes me to cycles. So taking accountability and responsibility is very important to me, and then sharing, being of service, is the 12th step of the 12 steps. To being able to share with other people is very important, because then that's when it becomes real. Whatever I learn as I give it, it becomes real. So there are issues about surviving abuse, there are issues about communication, there are issues about isolation, abandonment, and depending on what the situation, relationships with romantic relationships, family relationships, triggers, how to deal with different situations at work, in the community, even with situations like this. It's a lot easier to deal with patients or clients than it is with my own personal things. What do I do? How do I apply the mindfulness that I need to get through this, successfully? Because I wasn't trained to do this as a child and as an adolescent, so I need to train myself. At the same time, I continue to thrive as an adult. So not only am I learning new stuff, I have to compete and succeed in a master's program and pass tests and all this stuff, which the intelligence capacity is there, but some of the emotional and social skills have to be learned, because I didn't have those coping skills. So that's what I learned in therapy.
Very good. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
No questions. Thank you.
Patricia Dawson, and I have no questions.
I have just one question. You mentioned in your application at the very beginning that you'd like to rejoin the educational community. Can you tell me why you left the educational community and why you'd like to go back?
Because of the first incident, I still have a hard time dealing with responsibility. So I'm still learning. At this point, I'm very nervous being here. When I first got the first arrest, it was a gun that I used for target shooting and everything. Instead of dealing with it, I ran away from it. I was drinking a lot and everything. So I let my credential basically expire and got suspended and all that stuff, where it could have been fixed. It was a misdemeanor. It was my gun. It was just outside the box when I went target shooting. So that experience left me a bad taste of why didn't I know? I was a college graduate. Why didn't I know the socializing things about how to be responsible and how to drink responsible, how to accept things? And that's what brings me back to the whole helping professions. There's a lot of communities, there's a lot of families, there's a lot of individuals like myself who we have the capacities to do all kinds of stuff, sports, careers, but there, for some reason or another, we're lacking certain emotional and social skills, and we need to learn them on the way. And that's why I feel like working in the school systems and/or therapy, I'm kind of keeping that open because I owe to my community, and I know we have a lot of dysfunctions, alcoholism, violence, the gangs, a lot of parenting issues, and I need to go back there, and that's the reason I'm here. I'm not going to settle with just saving myself. I need to go and contribute back to my community.
So you're not interested in getting your teaching credential reinstated?
I don't know, but I, at this point, well, I am interested, but at this point, I'm just taking one step at a time, and definitely education was my first love.
Thank you.
Renee Lahner, I just have a couple of questions. You work in a community clinic, is that correct?
That's correct.
Could you tell me a little bit about the clients you see, what the makeup is of the population?
Yeah, it's a multicultural community setting, multilingual, mostly low income, people who do not have medical insurance for a long time, so they come in with a series of problems, medical problems, social problems, and a lot of times mental problems and emotional problems. So we deal with I deal with some of the emotional and mental problems that I'm able to deal with according to the scope of practice that I am familiar with. and then we refer to areas of specialty to other organizations, the county and other organizations as needed, because I know there's all kinds of needs. So yeah, it's very rich, very complicated.
Thank you. Your evaluation, I think it's the last one, it's just from last month, is excellent. And your supervisor makes a comment. I'm wondering if you could sort of tell me what he means, or she. It says it would be, works well independently. However, it would be an improvement for Alex to seek out more clinical direction. So can you just explain to me what your supervisor, it's not a terrible criticism by any means, but it's general, just what they meant by that?
Mainly that she wants to hear more from me, but yeah, it was, I guess, that we need to stay more in connection, because we work at different clinics.
Thank you.
Hi, Christine Whitlisbach. Thanks for coming in. You say you're going to AA and/or NA 1 to 3 times a week, and
I go to AA and Celebrate Recovery.
okay, and you have a sponsor,
I do.
and you're actively working the steps.
I do. I work them for me every year, once a year at least, and then I work them with sponsees as needed.
What step are you working on now?
Right now, I'm working on my 5th step, and I'm working with a sponsee on his 8th step.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Leah Brew. Thanks for coming in. I have 4 questions.
Mm-hmm.
One is, I guess, a reconciliation. The convictions were based on use of methamphetamines, and you identify yourself as an alcoholic. Could you speak to that?
Yes, yes. Alcohol in me, as an alcoholic, that's why I say I'm a true alcoholic. I pour alcohol in my system, and I'm Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. I would do stuff that I would never do. And it started with cocaine, and then it turned into meth, because back in the 80s, there was a lot of meth. If there would have been poison, I would have done poison. But it wasn't a preference of drugs, because with no alcohol, I don't crave any substances, but I do crave the alcohol, and I have craved it. But thanks to the program and the safety nets, I'm not craving a contingent to my recovery, because as soon as I disconnect, then I'm vulnerable. I know it's an illness.
That makes sense. Thank you. Another thing I noticed in your original paperwork that you submitted for this petition and in the letter that you read to us, you talk about going beyond expectations in your recovery. Could you say more about
Yeah,
that?
3 groups, as busy as I am, 3 groups a week is a lot. But I just got myself connected to 3 groups that are, one is my home group on Friday night. And then I started going with my sponsor on a Sunday group. And then a Monday AA group where I know a lot of people. I just got kind of stuck going to see friends. So it's kind of worked itself into it. I didn't mean to go to so many groups. 3 groups is a lot of groups for a person who's busy working and taking care of stuff. But you know what? It's better more than less.
Thank you. Another thing that I noticed on the letters that were submitted, very few of them referred to your recovery. I didn't know if they were aware that you were in recovery.
No, so my colleagues, my coworkers, not everybody. No, I don't disclose to everybody. I just wanted I just asked them for reference for my ethical and my professionalism, and that's what they kind of refer to.
Okay, so not everyone understands.
The people in the clinics, no, and no, I don't publicize it out there.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last
I
part.
do not publicize in the clinics that in my recovery and my background.
Thank you.
And why isn't that?
Well, I don't know. I just don't think it's a good idea. Only to close people. Definitely my supervisor, HR, the clinical director, but I just don't make it too public, especially with when it's access to patients or clients.
Well, no, not
it's
patients or
definitely
clients.
not.
Yeah.
Well, it used to be in substance abuse that it was okay. but as a clinician, is not okay. And with some of the colleagues, I prefer not to get too personal like that. It might not be a good idea.
You prefer to
Per-
maintain,
Personal preference, I guess.
okay, you prefer to maintain boundaries with people you're not close with.
Yeah, especially with things like this, because they could take it anyway.
Okay. And it kind of ties into the last question that I have. You spoke to your process in learning to take responsibility for yourself. And I notice there's a lot of avoidance of negative emotions. Even when I look at the work that your therapist is doing, it's great cognitive behavioral work. It's very concrete type of tasks. What I'm not hearing is the attention to your emotional development, the working through of your trauma, not like, I see that like if something emerges, you have skills, but it's more the core of your person. I wonder if there's low self-esteem, if there's shame, and so tolerating negative emotions is difficult for you, and that can, like, I would, in therapy,
Oh, for
want you to
sure.
work on being okay with being sad, or being okay with being angry, or shameful.
For sure. The roots of the root issues are abandonment, low self-esteem, all that stuff that you mentioned. There's the root issues. The therapy modalities that we use, even with my patients, with my clients, is what we use for healing to that. Even DBT or dialectical behavioral therapy, whatever the client could use and benefits from, is actually healing the root issues. So we don't talk about the physical abuse every single session. We talk about how I react to rejections when people go to places and I don't feel like I fit in. So we talk about cognitive behavioral things, but we're really talking about my physical abuse issues. So yeah, we do talk about the core issues, but not directly through that. Otherwise, we would be talking about horrible things for hundreds of sessions. So the techniques are dealing with the core issues.
Yeah. So how are you at tolerating negative emotions?
Getting a lot better. I'm getting a lot better. I'll be completely honest. Like I said, I don't like to pay consequences. I don't like to be in bad situations, but now I can do it. Before I used to run away from things. Now I can do it. And hopefully there'll be a time when I don't even have to force myself, when I can just do it naturally, like I would raise a child. I would raise a child to know that not everything's good. You don't have to have everything you want. Because for some reason I was thinking it had to be that way. And I never had it like that.
Yeah, because I'm thinking of the connection and your countertransference reactions with clients as a result of.
Sometimes it does, and that's why having good colleagues around is very important, and it has been excellent.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your honesty.
Thank you.
No further questions. Thank you.
Right, anything additional you'd like to add, Mr. Borella?
Like a session.
Say again?
It felt like a session. It felt like a session. It was good.
All right, then, with regards to Exhibit A, the pack of information that you submitted today, no objection, Ms. Jarvis?
No objection.
Exhibit A is admitted. Jarvis, any closing remarks?
No, except that I would like to mention, just because it came up a little bit in passing, the petitioner has petitioned for modification of penalty, not for early termination. He's not eligible for early termination at this point based on the Business and Professions Code. He is eligible to stop or substantially reduce the number of drug testing and counseling requirements as he requested. And that's it. Thank you.
Any closing remarks, Mr. Borella?
Thank you for your time.
All right, then, Ms. Jarvis, is the matter submitted?
It is.
All right, Mr. Borella, is the matter submitted for the board's consideration?
Excuse me?
Is the matter submitted to the board for consideration?
Any more matters? No.
Right, do you just have to submit the matter to the board so they can make a decision?
Okay.
All right, then the matter is submitted, and we are off the record. All right, Mr. Borella, just a moment. I have a form that I signed that provides information on how to obtain a transcript of the hearing. If you wish to obtain a transcript, after you get a copy of this, you are free to go.
I was so upset.
Templin, yes. You had the benefit, I believe. I did. Okay, thank you. About that, I forgot the microphone. It is August 18th, 2016. We're here in the matter of the petition for early termination of probation of Tracy Templin, case number 2016-070-250, agency case number AP-2012-937. I'm going to have the board members please state your appearance for the record, starting to my far right.
Max Disposti.
Leah Brew.
Christine Whitlisbach.
Renee Lawner.
Deborah Brown.
Patricia Locke Dawson.
Betty Connolly.
Christina Wong.
Peter Chu.
Karen Pines.
And we do have a quorum present. My name is Marcy Larson. I'm an administrative law judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings, presiding over the matter this afternoon and assisting the board. May I please take the appearance of the Deputy Attorney General?
My name is Christina Jarvis. I am appearing here on behalf of the Attorney General pursuant to Government Code Section 11522 and Business and Professions Code Section 4990.30. My role is not adversarial, but is intended to protect the public interest. I will assist the board in fact-finding by ensuring that the board has adequate information from which to make a decision on this petition. Thank you.
Templin, if you could please state your appearance for the record.
Tracy Bianchi Templin.
Ms. Templin, as I explained before we went on the record, the hearing is going to proceed this afternoon. Ms. Jarvis has a packet of documents. I believe you've been provided a packet of those documents. She will provide a brief history of your case. The board is concerned about any rehabilitation that you've undertaken since your license was disciplined. Ms. Jarvis will go first. She'll present the package. For each of the documents that she asked to have admitted, I will ask you if you've reviewed the documents and if you have any objection to the document. If you have an objection, just let me know and I'll get more information from you about that objection. After Ms. Jarvis has made her presentation, you will have an opportunity to testify before the board. You may present any documents that you brought with you today. Did you bring any additional documents?
I just have a statement to read.
All right. So, did you bring copies of that statement?
Did not.
Not just the one you're going to read from?
The one I'm going to read, yes.
All right. So, depending on how long it is, we might mark that as an exhibit, just so we have it for the record. You also may have any witnesses testify if you brought anybody with you today. Is there anybody that's going to be testifying on your behalf?
Yes, I have 2 witnesses.
All right. So those witnesses will be called after you provide testimony or before. You can choose the order that you want to present your case. For your testimony, the testimony of your witnesses, Ms. Jarvis can, after they're done testifying, can ask those witnesses and you questions. And then the board members will also have an opportunity to ask you and your witnesses questions.
Okay, thank you.
After you've presented your case and all of the questions have been asked, I will allow you both you and Ms. Jarvis to give closing remarks if you wish. All right?
All right, thank you.
All right then, Ms. Jarvis.
Yes, thank you. After a stipulated settlement with the board, on May 22nd, 2014, this petitioner was granted registration as a marriage and family therapist intern. Petitioner's application had initially been denied due to 2 DUI convictions. In August of 2007, this petitioner had a blood alcohol level of 0.28, and in March 2009, this petitioner had a blood alcohol level of 0.29. Petitioner was ordered to serve a 5-year probation period with both the standard and optional terms and conditions of probation. On December 11th, 2015, petitioner was granted a modification of probation, eliminating her biweekly therapy and the random biological fluid testing requirements. Respondent has been 100% compliant with probation and has paid for 2 years of probation monitoring costs in the amount of $2,400. At this time, I would like to identify the exhibits in the packet and submit them into evidence. The document behind tab 1 is petitioner's petition for the termination of probation, which was submitted by the petitioner. She has attachments of a written letter about her conduct and her sobriety plan, 5 letters of support from her sponsor, her therapist, and 3 of her supervisors. Petitioner has also provided her intern evaluation, showing that she meets or exceeds all expectations, and that she has done 6 hours of continuing education in treating addiction in young adults. The letter from Petitioner's therapist is of note, as the therapist also states that Petitioner has continued with her therapy sessions despite the mandate for her having to do so being lifted in December of 2015. At this time, I'd like to move Exhibit 1 into evidence.
Templin, any objection to Exhibit 1?
No objections.
1 is admitted.
Thank you. And I will identify the document behind tab 2 as the stipulated settlement and disciplinary order dated April 22nd, 2014, effective May 22nd, 2014, which also includes the underlying statement of issues.
Ms. Templin, any objection to Exhibit 2?
No objections.
Thank you. And I'll identify the document behind tab 3 as the decision on the petition for modification dated and effective on December 11th, 2015, and ask that be admitted into evidence.
Objection, Ms. Templin?
No objections.
Exhibit 3 is admitted.
Thank you. I will identify the documents behind tab 4 as the quarterly therapy reports from June of 2014 through January of 2016. Other than the January 2016 report, I presume that the board has reviewed these previously when considering Petitioner's previous petition. I will, however, highlight that Petitioner's therapist states that Petitioner has worked through significant life stressors during this time period of June 2014 to January 2016, including family issues, financial issues, marital issues, and health issues, and has shown no sign or indication towards relapse. And ask this exhibit be admitted.
Objection, Ms. Templin?
No objections.
Exhibit 4 is admitted.
Thank you. The document behind tab 5 is the notice of hearing for today at 1 p.m.
Objection, Ms. Templin?
No objections.
Exhibit 5 is admitted.
And finally, Exhibit 6 is this petitioner's registration history certification, which I ask be admitted.
Objection?
No objections.
Exhibit 6 is admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. At this time, I have nothing further until petitioner's presentation.
All right, would you like to testify first, or would you like to call your witnesses first?
I would like to testify first.
All right, the first thing I have to do then is I have to swear you in. If you please stand and raise your right hand. Solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony in the matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Repeat. And we want to make sure we have the full correct spelling of your name for our court reporter. So if you could please state and spell your name slowly for the record.
Yes, my name is Tracy Bianchi Templin. That's T-R-A-C-I. Bianchi is B-I-A-N-C-H-I. And Templin, T-E-M-P-L-I-N.
Templin, you may begin, and I'm just going to remind you, just read a little slower than you normally would.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before the board and disciplinary committee to request early termination of my probation. I was grateful for the opportunity to appear before you last year to request modification of my probation, which you approved, and I thank you for that. I'm grateful again today and appreciative for the opportunity to appear here once again. As you know from my packet, I'm an alcoholic in recovery. My recovery journey began in the fall of 2007 when I was faced with the reality of my disease of addiction. I had received a DUI earlier that year, and I had crossed that line into alcohol addiction that we often don't know we're crossing until it's too late. I sought help for my illness, and I went to residential treatment, and I got sober, but I continued to struggle with periodic relapse.
Ms. Templin, you're reading too fast. Our court reporter cannot keep up.
I'm sorry.
So just take a deep breath. And I know it's hard, but you're going to need to read much more slowly than you normally would. It's going to seem a little strange, but it will really help her to make sure she gets everything down.
I understand.
All right, thank you.
Okay. I sought help for my illness, and I went to residential treatment, and I got sober, but I continued to struggle with periodic relapse. I returned to residential treatment again in May of 2008, and I was able to put more of the pieces together in my recovery program. I began working with my current sponsor, and I was doing very well in recovery until November of 2008, when my father-in-law became ill and ultimately passed away. I relapsed during this time, and this was in large part to not prioritizing my recovery over other things in my life. I did not make my recovery my first priority, and I got a second DUI in December of 2008. I entered residential treatment for the third and final time, in January of 2009 to really explore and solidify what was missing in my recovery program and that had set me up for relapse. I'm proud to say that I have remained continuously sober since January 30th, 2009. Today, I have 7.5 years of continuous sobriety, and I work an extremely active and vigilant program of recovery. I am very grateful every day that I did not injure or kill someone or myself as I struggled through relapse and drinking and driving. Addiction is a humiliating and humbling experience. I am truly sorry that I endangered others as I struggled with my addiction. Today, I thank God every day for the gifts that recovery has brought to my life. I pray that I never take that for granted. I want to outline how I have rehabilitated and why I believe that early termination of my probation is appropriate. The DUIs and my relapses occurred in 2007 and 2008 before I ever made a decision to become an MFT. I never endangered the public in the practice of psychotherapy. I was sober at the time I decided to pursue my MFT in the fall of 2009. I was early in my sobriety, but I wasn't early in my recovery journey. I had started that process and that transformation in the fall of 2007. By the time I completed my MFT degree in August of 2011, I had more than 2.5 years of continuous sobriety. I applied for my intern number in November of 2011, and in May of 2014, I was granted an intern number, and at that time I had more than 5 years of continuous sobriety. Today, as an intern, nearing the completion of my licensure path, I've demonstrated 7.5 years of continuous sobriety. I have had no relapses, and I take steps daily to treat my disease of addiction. These are the things that I have done and will continue to do to support my recovery. I attend weekly AA meetings. I have several home groups. I have women's groups. I have meditation groups. This is a lifelong process for me. I will always go. I'm of service. I chair meetings. I tell my story. I've sponsored others. I give rides to meetings. I support others in the program. I attend and support recovery efforts at the Residential Treatment Center. I support fundraising activities at the recovery home, and I attend 12-step spiritual retreats. I practice daily prayer and meditation. I monitor and I'm attentive to my self-care needs. I call these kind of my non-negotiables. These are, my daughter told me not to do that, by the way. She told me not to do the quotes, but it's so me. These are my non-negotiables. It's regular healthy meals and nutrition, sleep, exercise, downtime in my schedule, and really paying attention to not overcommitting myself and overscheduling my life. I pay close attention to my trauma triggers, trauma, grief and loss, and anxiety. In 2011, I sought counseling on my own with my current psychotherapist to address countertransference and to do deeper work on past trauma, grief, and anxiety.
Another big, deep breath.
Sorry. I sought counseling on my own with my current psychotherapist to address countertransference and to do deeper work on past trauma, grief, and anxiety. Recognizing that addiction is a family disease, my family did family counseling, and both of my daughters participated in individual therapy in the early years of my sobriety, and my husband participates in Al-Anon. I strongly believe in treating the family, and I'm fortunate that my family has been active in my recovery journey. As of today, I have complied with all terms of my probation. I completed my additional drug and alcohol education and my relapse prevention in the first year of my probation in 2014. I researched and I found a customized 12-week relapse prevention program that was appropriate for someone 5 years in recovery so that I could get the maximum benefit from this requirement. I submitted to 17 months of biofluid testing as evidence of my sobriety. I also want to supplement that by saying that from April of 2010 to March of 2011, I voluntarily placed an ignition interlock device on my car so that I could reobtain my driver's license. This was not a court-ordered or a DMV requirement, but something I chose to do so that I could have my full license back and not be restricted to driving only to work. I needed to be able to drive to AA, and with a restricted license, you cannot drive to AA. This serves as not only evidence that I was not drinking, but of the actions that I'm willing to take to support my recovery. I have been fortunate in my journey to have many professionals and others support my recovery and my pursuit of my MFT license. There are letters of support throughout my intern application, my modification request, and my elimination request, and 2 of those individuals are here today to testify on my behalf. I am extremely grateful to Tracy Moore and Darlene Davis for the role they play in my recovery journey and for being here to support me today. My sponsor, Cheryl Case, had planned to be here today as well, but when we talked yesterday, we decided that she would not attend because her daughter is currently in one of the fire evacuation zones in California, and she needed to attend to her daughter. I miss her today, but her letter of support is in my packet, and I know that she is here with me in spirit as I am with her and her family. Today, I have strong support systems in place, and most importantly, I know how to ask for help when I need it. Before, I like to say that I was so independent that it almost cost me my life. That looks different today. I have people in my life who support me when I am challenged, and I have faced challenges in my recovery that serve as evidence that I can walk through life without resorting to drinking. I have walked through a whole lot of life in 7.5 years of recovery. In the first few months of my sobriety, my dog died unexpectedly. That was followed by the illness and death of my grandfather in August of 2011. Within a few months of my grandfather's passing, there was my father's cancer diagnosis and surgery. In 2013, my daughter's own mental health diagnosis and ongoing special needs and challenges became a large focus for my family. Significant financial constraints and stressors are also there. And last year, just a few months prior to my being here to present before the board, I walked through the end-of-life illnesses and the death of my grandmother. Since my last appearance here, my mother's health has been severely compromised as she suffers from the trickle-down effect of providing for end-of-life and long-term care needs for my grandmother. And immediately before my last appearance here, my uncle passed away. It has, and it continues to be, a challenging road for our family. But what looks different today I know how to monitor my own health and my own recovery. I have appropriate monitoring and accountability in place. I have a sponsor, and I have many friends in the 12-step program. I have therapists, and I have clinical supervisors. When licensed, I will join a consultation group. I have learned that we don't do this life alone. As I stated last year, when I was here to request modification of my probation, I can honestly say that I would have never asked to be an alcoholic. And I am remorseful that my disease led me to drive a car under the influence. But recovery is a gift in my life, and I am a better person for it. I am the best version of me that is possible. I remain humble and grateful that no one died or was injured as a result of my actions, and I will take whatever steps are necessary to maintain my sobriety and support my recovery program. Last year, my probation was modified to remove the mandatory requirement for personal therapy, but I continue to participate in biweekly therapy on my own volition for maintenance. I recently participated in brief couples counseling with my spouse so that we could improve upon communication regarding priorities, financial needs, and in support of my daughter's mental health. I continue to take continuing education in the field of addiction that supports both my personal and professional growth. I have recently taken and passed the California Law and Ethics exam, and I am very close to completion of my path to licensure. I have been able to focus on growth in all areas of my professional and personal life with recovery at the forefront. I respectfully request that the BBS grant me early termination of my probation. I am confident that I have provided evidence that I am capable of monitoring my own recovery efforts and needs as I have done so successfully for 7.5 years. I believe that I have provided sufficient evidence that I am not a danger to the public and that I can practice with safety and integrity. I thank you for the time to share my story, my recovery, and my rehabilitation journey. And I apologize for speaking so quickly. It's a very nervous process, so thank you.
All right, Ms. Templin, I'm now going to allow Ms. Jarvis to ask you any questions, and then the board members will ask you some questions if they have any, and then if there's anything you want to add before you call your witnesses, you'll be able to do so at that time as well.
Thank you.
Jarvis.
Yes, thank you. Ms. Templin, you wish to have your probation terminated approximately 3 years early, correct?
Yes.
What terms are you concerned with to the extent that you would like to be terminated so early?
Are you asking me if I have any terms that I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yes, so what I'm asking is, at your previous meeting here with the board, you were required to do biweekly therapy, but you're no longer required to do that, right?
Correct.
You were required to attend a relapse prevention program, but you've done that. There's nothing further for you to do.
Correct.
You were required to abstain from controlled substances and alcohol, so that's a term that will be lifted.
Right.
You were required to do biological fluid testing, but you're no longer required to do that.
Correct.
So this process today isn't going to change a whole lot about your life, is what I'm trying to get at. What do you think this will change in your life?
I think it's really going to put my recovery in my hands. It's really going to be up to me to monitor my own recovery efforts, which I think I did pretty successfully before my intern number was granted. I did that for a good 2.5 years of recovery before my intern number was granted. And I look at this process, I respect this process. It really has just provided the evidence that I was doing that successfully the 2.5 years before my intern number. So I've just continued with that process. So I respect that you might feel the need to monitor me, but I feel like there's sufficient evidence that I am capable of doing that on my own. At this point, the only things that really are part of my probationary requirements are attendance at AA meetings. I intend to do that. I have no plans to stop going to meetings. This is my life. I was nervous this morning, and you think I'm nervous now. I was very nervous this morning, and at 10 a.m. I was in a meeting and talking about how nervous I was so I could take some of the power out of it, and it helped. This is how I handle my life. Recovery is a big part of it. So that's, other than that, in the quarterly reports, and abstinence, which honestly I just take for granted at this point, the fact that I don't drink, I don't take abstinence for granted. But so those are the things that will change in my life.
Do you intend to continue therapy?
I will continue therapy on an as-needed basis. I have continued on my own because there have been, significant things going on in my life. I'm happy to have the extra support. It provides a good space for me to talk about the things that are going on, get extra support, and work through and process. It also provides a wonderful forum for me to process countertransference as that comes up with my clients. I'm not afraid to say that I work with some pretty complex cases, and so sometimes, with prior history of grief and trauma work and addiction, things get triggered, and it gives me a very safe space to work through that. And I have a lot of options, actually. I have my clinical supervisor, I have my therapist, so, I have a lot of options for me. So yes, I will continue on an as-needed basis.
Your dependency support group, do you attend AA?
I attend AA.
And you said you intend to continue to attend AA?
I do intend to continue to do AA. And actually, I may add some Al-Anon because, just to be truthful, I think as most people will experience getting into their recovery programs, the next phase is really looking at some deeper issues with codependency. That tends to be a lot of people's stories, and it's definitely mine. And that's particularly important. I apologize. I work in a helping profession too, and it's really important that I maintain appropriate self-care and some boundaries around how much I'm going to help other people and what I'm going to give.
And speaking of that, do you sponsor any other individuals through AA?
I have sponsored people. I am not currently sponsoring anybody.
What were your triggers to drink?
Grief, a lot of trauma in my background. I never really in my family learned how to deal with grief and loss. We really in our family we just stuffed things, got on down the road. So I felt a little bit like the canary in the mine shaft that wanted to just scream what's going on here. But I never really got that opportunity to do that. And it kind of resulted in, a definite lack of peace for me and a lot of anger that I just don't experience now that I've been able to do the deeper work and find new tools to cope.
And what about like daily triggers? Was there anything that caused you to go, drink to a .28 on the day that you got your DUI?
Looming grief, not really even early in my recovery before I finally got continuously sober. So you're talking like 2007, 2008. I had started my recovery process. I had done a little bit of therapy, but I had not done any of my therapy to unlock my grief and trauma. And so when there were issues that came up with grief and loss, and then you add the everyday issues and stressing events of marriage and children and crazy families, and I just couldn't handle it. That looks completely different now. I went to my meeting to relax, but I walked back in the house to two teenage daughters. I have twins that are almost 15 years old, and that's a little stressful at times, especially my one daughter has some mental health issues and some impulse control issues, and she was pretty rattled, and she was complaining and kind of having a meltdown because she didn't think we had food in the house. So don't call CPS. We're good. We have food in the house, but we didn't have the food that she liked. And so, that was nerve-wracking for me to be knowing that I was coming into this process. So, I went in the other room and I listened to some music, and I ended up actually leaving and coming here a little bit sooner so that I could kind of step away from that and let her do her thing.
Now, your therapist also mentioned that your marriage has had strains, and you've mentioned a lot about your support system and your family support. Do you think that that could be a potential risk of relapse if your marriage has issues?
Well, my marriage has issues, but I think everybody who's married knows how difficult relationships are. And when I say issues, I really just mean that, we're facing challenges. A lot of that has to do with the situation that my daughter's going through and some financial constraints. But I think the issues themselves are relatively normal issues. I am really paying close attention to what I need to get through those. And if I've learned anything from my program is that we don't have to do this alone. So I see it as an opportunity to take advantage of counseling and support from my own individual therapist and my sponsor. In working through those issues, I don't see that in any way as something scary, that I'm going to be triggered and it's horrible. I see it as I can recognize I need some help with this, and I'm going to get it, and I'm going to work through those issues.
Thank you. I have no other questions.
Now I'm going to open up questions to our board members, starting to my far left, please. And just a reminder, if you could just state your name before the question.
Karen Pines. I think you were asked and answered my questions, but I'm going to ask again. Are there other, what do you think going forward without being on probation, what do you think your relapse triggers might be?
Realistically, anxiety. I mean, if I stop doing what I'm doing, I think I'm at very high risk for relapse. I don't intend to do that, and I have people and accountability in my program, in my life, in my job. So again, I'm not really doing this alone. There's a lot of people. Once you're not the only oversight that I have and accountability that I have. I have it like inherently set up in my system. I'm not complacent. I do not take this for granted. So I realize that this is a lifelong process, and certainly I think if I stop doing what I'm doing, my experience tells me from working with my sponsor, who has 27 years, and some of the other fabulous women in my recovery community, that I don't have the luxury of stopping working on my program. It's like any other mental health disease. The better you feel, the less you think you need to do, but that's a trap, and I'm not willing to get in there and take a chance with that.
Thank you.
Christina Wong, welcome back.
Thank you.
So I have no doubt that you will get your license very soon, since you're accumulating your hours. So what do you plan to do when you get your license? Are you going to stay, at the Counseling Center?
I work at Hope Counseling, and I love working there. You know, at a point in time, I've been having these discussions with my clinical supervisor, and I had thought about at one point going into private practice, and as my licensure path is nearing its completion and those decisions are very close, I've already turned in my hours, so I'm studying for my clinical now. I love working at the agency I work for. It's a good fit. And I think for me, it just represents a sense of community and support in my day-to-day work. And I think I would appreciate that more than I would appreciate sitting in a private practice isolated. Not that I wouldn't still try and maintain relationships with others, but I don't have to work at that very hard where I'm working now. It's a good fit, and it really serves the community. It meets my needs, and I think it'll enable me to pursue some other goals that I have.
So you mentioned about wanting to, or have a thought of having your own private practice. Will you go there one day?
I don't know. I mean, I might if the fit seems right, but right now the fit, you know, as I've gotten close to that time period, the fit doesn't seem like something I want to do. I'm definitely open to it. But again, I love where I'm working. I've been there since 2011. It's a good fit, and you know, I'm happy there, and I'm happy to explore new opportunities.
I guess that, you know, my thought was that, you know, you eventually, you know, all licensed person, you know, want to practice more independently. And right now you're still relying on a lot of your clinical supervisors, a lot of the support to help you monitor, you know, your own clinical practice. So, you know, we know you're superwoman, you know, you have so many activities every day. You know, so one day in your professional life, you're going to be having, you know, more autonomous while you can, you know, continue on, you know, this professional journey on your own. So how do you monitor, you know, your own practice and making sure that you're still safe and, you know, up to the standard?
Oh.
That's really what I'm thinking, so.
You know, my relationships with my colleagues and my peers is paramount. I have those relationships. I have a lot of relationships outside of my agency, and so I'm in constant contact. Some of this crossover with my recovery relationships, you know, and I would intend to keep those up even if I did ever decide to go in private practice. You know, that's more of an immediate thought of just like, I enjoy being with people, so I'm not going to go and isolate in an office. But I'm certainly not worried about what would happen if I decided to go into private practice, because I am going to keep up my relationships with other people. I have other goals. I really want to teach in one of the MFT programs. You know, I would like to teach law and ethics. Like I said, I have a healthy respect for this process, and I've been through a lot, and I think I bring a lot to the table. So I'd like to teach, and you know, when I've reached the point where it's appropriate, I would like to be a clinical supervisor. I love mentoring people. You know, my life is about relationships today.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. I have no questions, thank you.
I'd like to thank you for coming in, and I have no questions.
Leah Brew, I don't have any questions. I just wanted to congratulate you on passing the law and ethics exam, and even more importantly, on maintaining sober through so many difficulties in your life in the last 7.5 years.
Thank you.
Same here, and thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Follow-up questions, Ms. Jarvis?
No, thank you.
Any additional testimony you would like to provide?
No.
All right, then if you'd like to call your first witness, you can do so at this time.
Okay. I would like to call Tracy Moore.
Moore?
Yes, it's Moore.
All right. Moore, before you sit down, I'm going to swear you in. If you please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the Please make sure that you speak into the microphone and state and spell your full name for the record.
Absolutely. So my name is Tracy Moore. It's TracyMoore.
Right, Ms. Moore, you've been sitting in the audience, which means, of course, you know that we have a court reporter here. So if you can make sure to speak nice and loudly and slowly, that would be helpful. We have a couple options. Ms. Templin, you can ask Ms. Moore questions and have her answer those questions. Or if you have a statement that you want to provide, testimony that you just want to share, you can certainly do that as well. I will leave that up to you, Ms. Templin.
I don't have anything prepared per se, so I'm fine. Ask me any questions.
And they can be open-ended questions if there's.
Wow, I hadn't thought about giving you questions. Last year, the board had questions for you, and I guess I would just ask for you, you know, they mentioned that, you know, I've walked through a lot of life, even in the last year alone, I've walked through a lot of life, and so obviously they would have concerns about, you know, how I would do monitoring my own recovery efforts, my own self-care. I would like you to speak to that.
Absolutely. So I've been in private practice for 16 years. Prior to that, I worked in chemical dependency recovery, and it is a specialty of mine, as is women's issues. I've been incredibly impressed with Tracy from day one when she, well, just as an intern coming to therapy to want to work with countertransference issues. She does have, she's an adult child of an alcoholic, has abuse history, and also her recovery issues, being, you know, in recovery and prioritizing that. So right away, very impressed with her intentions through the, gosh, we've worked together for 5 years now. So when it became mandated for her through this whole process, I mean, just the integrity, the character, her attitude with regard to, okay, I'm going to make the best of this, and I'm going to really learn something and push through this to be even that much more valuable in this profession and to her clients. I mean, just, I'm proud of you. She understands this disease. She understands that she has a responsibility to her recovery. So in looking at eliminating probation altogether, I really feel strongly that she's going to continue to take responsibility for her recovery. She's going to continue to take responsibility for being the absolute best therapist that she can be. I mean, this is someone, Christina Wong, you mentioned, you know, she's the superhero. Well, we work together on her being a little bit careful with that, and she understands that as well. But she is very motivated to take CEC classes and to pursue her growth as a therapist, but also as an individual when she goes to retreats. Her community, her social support system is her recovery community. It is her counseling community. I don't see that that's going to change. She's very passionate about her involvement in that. One of the things that I've always worked with people on, working with people in recovery, is being aware of the slippery slope and really having a plan in place with regard to relapse prevention. She's definitely had a lot of challenges over the 5 years that we've been together. A lot of just life transitions, aging parents, teenagers, and then it gets complicated by the fact of, you know, mental health issues with the teenagers. Dealing with teenagers alone is challenging, as you know, and financial stressors in her relationship with her husband. Her husband and she work together very well, but at the same time have to figure out how to navigate some of these external stressors. And she's been very proactive in not having to address the slippery slope. I mean, she just is really on top of that. And that's been a lot of the work that we've done together. Anxiety, she mentioned, you know, being a trigger, it's the PTSD, it's the anxiety. She deals very well. There's been a reduction in nightmares and just all the way, you know, around. She has coping mechanisms. And the fact that she has continued to participate in therapy, I didn't doubt that she would. I mean, this is something that she values, and I don't see termination as anything that's up and coming. I mean, this is a relationship that works for her and she really values. So, yeah.
All right, thank you. Ms. Jarvis, any questions?
Yes, actually, really just a couple questions for the record. Ms. Moore, you are a licensee through this board?
Yes.
What license do you hold?
I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist.
And how long have you been licensed?
I was licensed in 1999.
And before that, you had your intern license, is that correct, or are you counting that?
No.
Okay.
My official document.
So when did you get your intern license then?
I was licensed for 5 years. Okay, my goodness, you're going way back.
That's fine, but
I'm
you've
too old
been
to
in this,
remember.
you've been in this profession for quite some time.
Yes.
Is the bottom line.
Yes.
All right. And you said you've been with Ms. Templin approximately 5 years?
Yes, we started working together in June of 2011.
Do you know if you were the first therapist she saw after her 2009 DUI? If you know,
I can't recall off the top of my head. I want to say no, but you probably know, Tracy.
Can't ask her questions.
Oh, sorry.
If you don't know, you can just say so.
I
and then
do
if-
not know,
if
sorry.
she
I
has
don't
anything
recall.
she wants
That
to
would have
add,
been
she-
on my intake. That's not in my memory.
And in those 5 years, have you seen Ms. Templin progress significantly?
Definitely.
And do you fear any relapse?
I do not.
I have no other questions.
Right now, it's our board members' opportunity to ask you any questions they might have, and I'm going to start to my far left. Like we have no questions. So anything
Okay.
further that you would like to ask Ms. Moore?
No. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Moore.
Nice.
All right, and if you would like to call your next witness.
I would like to call Darlene Davis.
Davis, if you could please come up to before you sit down, I will swear you in. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? State and spell your full name for the record.
My name is Darlene Davis, Darlene. Davis is Davis.
Davis, you had the benefit of sitting in the audience, so you know how this will work. I will allow Ms. Templin to ask you some questions about information that she'd like you to provide to the board. If you could just please remember to speak into the microphone and speak slowly, that will help our court reporter.
Okay.
All right, Ms. Templin.
I would just like to repeat what I asked Tracy to do, which is just for you to talk about your relationship with me and how you feel about my recovery program as you see it play out in the work that I do at Hope Counseling, and support my request for early termination.
Okay, gladly. I've had the pleasure of knowing Tracy since 2010. I was supervising her through another agency, so I didn't really know her background because it wasn't my job to determine who a supervisee was going to be. But I was so impressed with her in supervision that I had asked her to come on to Hope Counseling Center once she was done at People Reaching Out. And that's when she disclosed to me her background. And at first I was hesitant, and she has proven me wrong since that time. She came to Hope Counseling Center in 2011. Tracy continues to this moment to be one of the most professional people that I've had at Hope Counseling Center. And you made me cry back there. I have individual and group supervision with Tracy, and she is always available to talk about issues that she might be struggling with that affect her counseling. And she's open to talking about those things. And she has, like she mentioned, been through a lot in the last couple years, and I see her as this steady person through the whole time. I have never seen her, not to say she doesn't struggle with life like we all do, but I have never seen, as her therapist said, going down that slippery slope. And I have no doubt that she is in her recovery for life. And when you guys asked her, or the lawyer asked what you would gain through this, I would love to see you become a licensed marriage and family therapist without any probation. I think that would be a nice gift to have. You have struggled and worked very hard for this.
Thank you.
Anything further before we open up to questions?
No.
All right, then, Ms. Jarvis.
Yes, thank you. And Ms. Davis, you also are a licensee with this board?
Yes, I am.
And for how long?
I have been licensed as a marriage family therapist since 2004, and I'm a LPCC as of 2014.
And just for the record, what is an LPCC?
A licensed professional clinical counselor.
Thank you. Now, you also wrote a letter, which Ms. Templin submitted on March 16th, 2016?
Correct.
All right. And you also provided an intern evaluation form for Ms. Templin. Is that correct?
Correct.
And almost every single section is exceed standards, but there are a couple where it looks like you wrote in 5+. It's a 6-point scale, so can you explain what you mean by 5+?
5+ mean, because the scales, each section has a section of 0 to 1, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5. And so it's probably maybe cultural might be one of them, which I don't usually give very many people a 6 because I think that is a specialty. So 5+ means it's better than the 5, but not quite the 6. And doesn't mean that this person isn't meeting the standard of care by any means. But it's usually very specific areas, which I don't have memorized at this moment.
Yeah, no, cultural was actually the one I was looking at. So, so you're saying you would give somebody a 6 if they were actually a specialist in that area, but you can't really do that with
Yeah,
an
if they
intern.
have experience and training that really understands different cultural biases and differences, then I will give them a 6. But otherwise, they get a 5+ if I still think that they're exceed expectations.
Would you say that Ms. Templin is an outstanding intern?
I would say she is an outstanding intern, yes.
And do you think that she would have a position with Hope when she gets her license?
Yes, I hope she does, and we've talked about it, and I'm glad to know that she will, and she has many relationships there, and I can see her teaching and doing supervision in the future.
I have no other questions.
Great. I'll now open up to our board members with any questions, starting to my far left. Right? No questions. It looks like no questions. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Darlene.
Ms. Templin, any additional evidence or witnesses you'd like to present?
No additional evidence or witnesses.
All right. I'm going to allow Ms. Jarvis to give any closing remarks, and then you get the final word if you have one.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Ms. Jarvis.
Yes, thank you. I would only note, once again, this petitioner is eligible for the relief that she has requested. However, this is a big jump. She's going from 5 years to essentially 2 years of probation. Further, many of the conditions, the optional conditions of probation, are no longer imposed on this petitioner. However, with that said, this petitioner does appear to have done a significant amount of recovery work, and I think the board should take all those factors into consideration. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Jarvis. Ms. Templin, any closing remarks?
I would just like to say thank you for your consideration and your time today. I appreciate it.
All right. Ms. Jarvis, is the matter submitted for the board?
It is.
All right. Is the matter submitted?
It is.
All right. The matter is submitted, and the record is closed. We are off the record. All right, I have a form that I signed that provides information on how to obtain a transcript of the hearing if you wish. And then after you receive that form, you're free to go. And then the board will be going into closed session.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
The board would like to take about a 10-minute break at this point. It is 2:43. We'll see you back here at
I already signed them. Thank you.
3 o'clock. All right, this is the time. We're going to move on to item number 3. This is public comment. If there's anyone in the audience who would like to step forward to make have any comments, this would be the time. Can't discuss anything that's not on the agenda, but we certainly can put it on the agenda for another time if need be. All right, seeing none. We'll be moving on to number 4, and that's suggestions for future items on the agenda. Is there anyone? Christine?
Yes, I'd ask her to be put on this. Okay, so I said I'd asked for it to be put on this agenda.
I don't know if that was done before. Oh, you did, okay, I'm sorry, I just wanted to make sure, I apologize.
That's
I
okay.
just wanted to make sure I hadn't stepped over something.
Okay, so I'll start over. So I hadn't mentioned that I'd asked for it to be put on the agenda this time. Somehow it got overlooked. So I'd like to discuss the feasibility of BBS retaining their own attorney at the next meeting.
And as you well know, we can't discuss that right now, but
No, I'm asking for it to be
but
put
a
on the
future,
agenda.
a future item that we can discuss. Anything else from any other board members? Okay, then we shall go into closed session. And I just want the public to know that when we reconvene, we will not be webcast when we come back and then adjourn. So this is it, and now we are in closed session.